to order. We have regrets from Councillor Hibb. He gave regrets today and may join the meeting or not. And do we have any further regrets from anyone?
Not at this time.
Not at this time. All right. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kmaq, the district of Spaghetti, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. East Hants further acknowledges the 50 African Nova Scotia communities whose 400-year history have contributed to the province's culture, history, and legacy. We are all treaty people. All right. First order of the business of approval or the amendments to the agenda of all subcommittees. What is your wish? Seeing no changes, I will approve the agenda. Approval of the minutes of November the 18th, 2025. What is your wish? Seeing none, I approve those minutes. Next order of business is RCMP quarterly report by Staff Sergeant Ballamaceda. Do we have a mic?
I'm good. Sergeant McRae is normally with me. Sergeant McRae's off ill. Corporal Jody Simpson's filling in for him. I'll jump right into it, into the HR slide. We can move on to the next one there. This is something that I had to get the numbers run over and over and over again because I couldn't believe when I kept seeing the roadable resources at 30 and a half. Roadable resources are supposed to be at 28 for East Hants. We're at 30 and a half, and I guess the perfect storm in our favor happened where we ended up with people transferring in, and we haven't transferred out anybody yet. So needless to say, that's not going to last at that number in above surplus, but for a period we were running 4 surplus establishments and 2.5 reservists. So there's where the extra numbers came in from. As per usual with these presentations, I'll go through the APP as our annual performance plan for the RCMP under road safety, community engagement, proactive crime and drug enforcement, and then the improving data for decision making. Under road safety, of course, I hate talking about it first, but it's always the big measure for road safety is collisions. From November 2025 to January 2026, 1 fatal motor vehicle collision, 9 motor vehicle collisions with injuries, 81 for property damage, and 72 of them were non-reportable. The fatal one was alcohol related. It was a single person involved, single vehicle involved. Into our proactive approach, of course, I always talk about the 3 E's of road safety is enforcement, education, and engineering. Here's the enforcement portion, which always has an educational portion attached to it. 233 warnings in that same period, 100 summary offense tickets, and 2 defect notices. That is just for the East Hants members. Provincial traffic unit normally rolls through. We've seen a little bit less of them because of our numbers, but they've promised that they will be out in full force sooner than later. They gave out 11 warnings and 5 summary tickets in that same time period. Just a story to tell here with regards to a break and enter charge. 37-year-old man was charged with a break and enter after forcing his way into his ex-partner's home. He was enough grounds existed, and charges were laid for break and enter on that one. Community engagement. I actually love seeing all these photographs that keep coming in. Some of them didn't make the cut, otherwise we would have been here for quite a while. The first one you see is of Corporal Egan, one of our shift supervisors, who took a little bit of time while she was on her patrols to stop at one of the local group homes, because there was a resident there that she'd been hearing about that's a big fan of police. She stopped in, let the resident hang out in the car for a little bit and even play with the sirens. Just another nice way that that shift is reaching out to the community. Another way that reaching out, some of our guys won't admit that they don't like doing this, but these two fellows here on the left is Constable Greg Warren. He is the newest member in East Hants. I think you can count his service on one finger. That's how new he is, and whether he was coerced into going and donating blood or he wanted to, he saw the blood donation clinic and decided to pop in while he's in uniform. Another fellow constable is Matty, another newish fella. He's got about 2 years service, was also donating blood there on his day off. It's hard to believe that Christmas fell in this reporting time, because it seems like so long ago, but if the photo on the left, we lovingly called that one Like Father, Like Son. So for a period, we actually had both Constable Mike Woolcock and Constable Will Woolcock in the office. They are father-son combination, and they took an opportunity to take a nice photo by the tree at the tree lighting ceremony. And Will Woolcock, again, another new member. We blacked out Santa's face because we don't want anybody to know who Santa really is. Toy drive fell in there as well, through just a sign in front of our detachment and word of mouth. People were coming to the detachment to donate toys. As you can see in the picture there, these members did a fantastic job. Corporal Egan, Constable Lett, Constable Baruski, and Constable Mike Woolcock. Will Woolcock was not in the office at that point. And the tree lighting festival, nice picture taken there. I really wish I would have put the video on with this one. This is one of our shifts. I, again, heard that there was a fellow having a birthday, a big fan of police. For some reason or another, didn't have a lot of people drop by to visit him for a birthday. Members on shift took it on themselves to spare a few minutes to swing by. The reason I wish there was a video, because one of the guys on here is probably not going to American or Canadian Idol, but he sang a rendition of Happy Birthday that probably could have broken some windows, but all the same, very much appreciated. I'll skip over the code blues because there's no new information on there. We are into semester 2 now, so I expect to see more code blues going on. All right, with regards to the proactive crime/drug enforcement, offender management, one of the things that isn't normally seen in the community is the amount of people that are under house arrest. They really shouldn't be seen because they're in their homes, right? Curfew or house arrest, we have 17 in our community, and each of the shifts have a certain number of people on their list that they are to check, and they've been doing really well at those proactive checks. Our Citizens on Patrol program is up and running within the community. The volunteers are extremely enthusiastic, and they're making great contributions to keeping East Hants safe. For those not familiar with how Citizens on Patrol works, is they will go out in pairs. They have an app that they use in which they put the type of problem that's going on. That's for their own stats tracking. But they can reach in directly to our supervisor on shift to let them know that they're seeing something. So it cuts the dispatcher out of it and increases the amount of, decreases our response time to those events. They're looking to expand, so if anybody is interested, by all means drop by the detachment. We'll set you up with how to get involved. For obvious reasons, we're not going to tell you how many Crime Stoppers tips we get, but it's a lot. We've got a dedicated Crime Stopper section in Nova Scotia. They work out of our headquarters office. When they see an incident, they try to figure out which area it belongs to, and they'll send us that tip. Each tip is followed up. A lot of times, they do lead to other investigative actions. I'm not going to say necessarily a charge, but other investigative actions or stuff that we didn't know about before. With regards to improving the data-driven decision-making, so 2025, we were a 9.2% increase in calls for service. It's significant, and you guys will always hear me say that it's not a trend unless we see it year after year. This is year after year since 2020. We've been increasing calls for service since 2020. To be expected, East Hants is a very, it's a growing area, and population is increasing quite a bit. I won't go into the stats. There's a pie chart there. There's one for each month: November, December, and January. You will see a trend that it is the same slices of the pie, usually around the same size from month to month. Again, 3 months don't necessarily make a trend, but it is always nice to know what types of calls for service our guys are getting. The one I will draw attention to, and it's funny because we were just talking about it, I was talking with one of the council members here about intimate partner violence. In the last 2 years, intimate partner violence, there was 186 files, and that's the ones that we can figure out were intimate partner violence. There's ones that slip through the cracks. There's ones that don't even get reported. So much so in 2024, the province passed legislation, the Intimate Partner Violence Epidemic Act, which was to draw attention to the fact that there is intimate partner violence going on, and it's a lot more prevalent than we believed before. So federally and provincially, all agencies take the intimate partner violence quite seriously. It's something that we've gotten to the point now that some of our units are actually putting specialized people in those positions to review all the intimate partner violence. Not necessarily going out investigating them, but reviewing them. I know Halifax District has a few, and Colchester has one dedicated to special victims, which includes intimate partner violence. The next one, oh yes, I don't have this one on my slide pack because Shirley was nice enough to throw this one in late for me because I only threw it out yesterday. We are changing uniforms. No, they don't look like this. They look like that. Our members will be starting to wear theirs as soon as they start getting them in. So you might see some of the gray shirts, some of the blue shirts until we can transition fully to the blue shirts. One question I was asked is why the blue shirts? Well, it puts us a little more in line with other policing agencies wearing a darker uniform, and it increases the officer safety, especially in the evenings, without having the reverse silhouette, as we call it, with the blue vest and the gray sleeves. Now everything is all blue. Not to mention the fact that I think they're a little more comfortable than our 30-year-old button-up shirts that seem to keep getting untucked and everything. These should be a lot more comfortable for our members. And that is it for our presentation. If there are any questions, I'll take them, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you for your presentation. I have a few on the list here. First, I'll go to the warden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have, surprise, surprise, I have a few questions to ask. But first, I'd just like to start off, and I saw those brief mention of the APP update at the beginning, the annual performance plan. So it seems to me it's getting to be that time again. So before I forget, I'm going to make a motion that the Police Advisory Committee recommend to Council that Council instruct staff to work with the RCMP to establish a workshop agenda for committee to provide input to the APP for East Hants.
All right, we have a mover, seconded by Councillor McPhee. Any comment or question with regard to the motion? Please, I know there's a number on, just put your hands up if you have anything to the motion. All right. So hearing now, we'll go to the vote. Where the hell will I go? And all right, where do I get that today? Excuse me.
It passed unanimously, Shirley.
All right, the motion is passed unanimously. Continue on, Warden.
All right, so, I was kind of excited there for a few minutes over that 30.5 too. And then, as I tend to do, I sat down with my pen and I started doing some math, and I'm not quite as excited as I was. So we have 30 and a half, but the 2.5 reservists are over and above what we pay for.
Yep.
Right? They're extras that are in there that would give us, you know, in the best of all possible worlds, more than we pay for. But then I looked and I see 2 street crime enforcement officers, and those are provincially paid.
Correct.
And the dog handler is kind of a bonus position.
Yep.
So
Correct.
if my math is right, we're still down 3 members of our complement that East Hants provides. I just took 30.5, took off 2.5, then took off 2, and then took off 1. That got me to 25.
Yeah, but 2.5 are working dedicated. Those reservists are dedicated to East Hants,
Yeah,
and the surplus to establishment are
yeah.
bodies that are showing up in East Hants to work.
But of the bodies that we're paying, we're still down 3.
Correct.
Okay. So that leads me to my next question, because, and that was before I did the math. So our school liaison officer and our community officer, are those positions among those that are out?
Correct.
Okay. Which leads me into the code blues. And is there any way to have those positions backfilled by maybe not the reservist, but somebody else? And I don't know, but I'm just concerned that those positions are still
Yep.
vacant.
And your concern's valid, Warden. So not specifically a person named to those positions, but the responsibilities and the duties of those positions are falling onto members, dedicated members on the shift. So outside of their regular patrol duties, they will be covering off the duties. Now, having said that, one of the school / community officers is on light duties. So he is still taking the appointments for everybody, and he's just actioning it through each of the shifts. So everything is getting done. Code Blues is one of those things that it requires a little bit more planning, and it's one of those things that after looking at these stats, I'll be all over Constable Ouellette to make sure that they're getting scheduled and we're assigning people to them.
Because it has traditionally it's been very important to this council, and that's why the school liaison officer position was funded way back when, because it's very important to us for our officers to be seen in our schools and making relationships with our kids. And I just don't want that to fall through the cracks because of HR issues and that. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Counselor Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. Intimate partner violence, does that have to be a physical or can that be verbal or?
So how it's scored for us, not every one of those intimate partner violence results in a charge. The way the criminal code has it worded out, intimate partner violence is actually just a way that we tag an assault or other physical activity against another person. Threats are not necessarily physical, but there is something else that they are working towards nationally with the criminal code to put coercive control into the criminal code. It's a little bit harder coercive control. I've sat in on quite a few workshops on coercive control, and I'm just starting to, well, I understood what coercive control was, but just starting to understand the elements of the offense that they're proposing for the criminal code. I think they have a long way to go to make this a charge, but I think they're going in the right direction. Where I go with the intimate partner violence and us being aware, and the police in general being aware of coercive control and little things that are not necessarily a bruise or an assault, is we can offer services by identifying those things without actually laying a charge. So the intervention of just being in there triggers all kinds of other services. We have volunteers with East Hants specifically that deal with victim services. And if they do happen to get a charge, the court system has the victim services on their side. So we're trying to cover the gaps of where victims are.
So just looking at the B&E in Elmsdale, could that be put in that category even though it's related to a B&E?
Absolutely. So without boring people on stats and how they're scored through our database, that would get what's called a secondary line of scoring. The first one being the break and enter. The secondary line would have an IPV code onto it. So that would be in one of those 186.
The pie chart shows 4 unrestricted duties. Would they be members that could be on the road? Or
That could be, no, cannot be on the road.
Okay.
That's why they're restricted.
is that from the roadable 30.5?
From roadable 30.5, and then the math, we added the additional 4 surplus to establishment, 2.5 reservists are in there.
But what is a long-term ODS, just out of curiosity?
Long-term ODS is somebody who's been off sick for longer than a month.
Okay, so there'd be,
I have 2 of them.
so it's possible there's 6 from the roadable ones that aren't physically working. Okay, I just want to thank you for your toy drive that you did, and hopefully that they were distributed through all East Hants, and not just local.
I have no idea how the distribution went. They went through Schools Plus to do it.
Okay. Thank you, that's all, Mr.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Next up, Councillor McPhee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Staff Sergeant. The MVC fatal, I just see at the end of it, it says SUI. I was just wondering what
It's
that.
still under investigation.
Okay, I thought maybe that's. what
Yeah,
it
so
was.
we'll keep things under investigation until prosecution's complete. That's why we don't give you a whole lot of details with regards to it. And technically, we could have given you a name because somebody's in the charge category, but in this form, not necessarily
No,
important.
no. And the other thing, I'm still getting some people contact me about the speed of the traffic in the Shubenacadie District Elementary, especially the truck traffic coming in from the west, still doing quite a speed as they come into the school zone. So just if you could bring that to the attention of the members. But I
absolutely.
have seen a few people stopped as they're leaving, heading towards, on Trunk 2, heading south. So that's also an area that's a problem there in the Havenwood Drive and beyond. So good to see that. Maybe that'll slow some people down if they see people stop there. But that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPhee. Next up, Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, and thank you to our speakers this morning. A couple of items to bring forward. The first one is just bring forward a concern from a resident on Acorn Avenue in Lance about the frequency of RCMP calls to that street and a general concern about safety. So, not getting into any more specifics than that, I just promised that I would pass that along to you. The other item that I have is somewhat related to Councillor McPhee's on the number 2 through the village of Milford. I've just noticed firsthand a pickup in vehicular speed going through the community. Of course, we have 2 schools in the community. Perhaps one of those schools is adding to that problem. I'm not sure, but at any rate, just with that being a high school, but I just wanted to pass along that I'm noticing speeds going through are faster than usual. That's it. Thank you.
Actually, thank you, Councillor Merriam. Next up, Councillor Tingley.
through the chair. I don't receive many inquiries from my district regarding the RCMP. One question I get once in a while, and I have this last month, is about the ATVs running up and down the Lance connector there. And sometimes it's 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's one fellow that just doesn't have a muffler on it, on his ATV, and it really bothers the people. But I don't get many inquiries, so that's good. A question I have about the intimate partner violence, is that correct that 186 is just for 1 month?
No. Did it say 1 month? It was 2 years. I think.
2 years, is it?
Yeah, it was 2 years. No, not,
Oh,
not a month.
okay,
No,
maybe I
did,
read it.
did I make
just
an
go-
error on the slide?
It's probably not an error. Probably I just never,
Yeah, 2024 to 2026.
okay. The other question I would have around that, and we've touched on it a bit, like that still seems like a lot. Do you have any kind of a breakdown as to the level of complaint that was made, like physical, verbal? Is there anything in those numbers to indicate what could be done to deal with it? Or I'm sure you are dealing with it, but
So the answer is yes.
Right.
There is a breakdown. For those 186, the intimate partner violence isn't as easy as just you cross this threshold and all of a sudden it gets a score of an intimate partner violence. There has to be a review done of each individual file, and it's best to do it as they come in right away.
right.
And this is why Colchester, which is a growing area, and Halifax District, which is a massive area, have dedicated people for that purpose. They review these files to make sure that we are hitting everything, and if something is getting missed, it's getting actioned right away. So right now, the stopgap that we have for that is a supervisor, our operations NCO, and a case manager. The Northeast Nova District is adding 2 more positions out of the Northeast Nova District office that will be looking at special victims, let's call it a special victims unit. It's easier to grasp that person's crimes, serious person crimes. They're going to be looking at reviewing those and assisting with those investigations.
Okay, because if there's those kind of numbers, it's only a matter of time before we have a really bad situation.
Absolutely.
And I'm just wondering if we're identifying things that could be done, a plan to deal with this. Like it's a national problem.
And our numbers per capita are not out of the norm. Like that is norm for the province. I'm not saying that domestic violence should be normalized, but those are the numbers that every other district is turning in.
Should we be discussing this any further as to what the planning is for our municipality? Or do we just look at the numbers?
No, I think the discussion is a good one to be had. And currently, our office is studying what the Colchester model that they are working with. They've got a special victims unit and a special investigation section, or a general investigation section. We're looking at that model to see if it could apply to East Hants. The other issue is, where do I draw the body from?
Right. I don't want to get bogged down in it here, but like hearing that number, I was thinking there should, like, I'd love to see a plan to try to reduce it.
Yeah.
And the other numbers that were reported, it's all good information, this data. The collisions, there was 152 collisions and 21 impaired driving during that period. I don't know what we can do as far as additional education, or if there's anything in the numbers that tell us that things that we could do. And the same with crimes. There was 331 crimes against persons and property and criminal code violations. Is there anything in the numbers that indicate, would point to something that we could be doing to take preventative action?
Stop telling people on social media where we are, not you guys. It's,
Yeah.
it's kind of a joke in our office that we'll do a checkpoint and they'll watch. East Hants wants to know as soon as we're identified as being there, because it happens, we'll move somewhere else, right?
Right.
Because people will avoid those areas, and we generally don't want to get the general public rolling through, and 90% of the people that roll through are law-abiding people, and the 10% of the people that will not roll through those checkpoints, once they get tipped off, won't roll through anyways.
Right. The way I see it, with all these numbers, you're already doing a lot. But there's information in those numbers. I wonder if we could be taking preventative, and seeing that you have to walk into 186 of these situations, they can be quite volatile. You never know what you're going into. But if there's anything in the numbers, you can see that. I'd like to hear about it when you report at council.
So generally speaking, Councillor, with regards to the IPVs, not every IPV is a charge, not every
Right.
IPV is an assault. So proactively are already getting scored as IPV. Doesn't mean that we just put a check mark and we leave. These are the people that are proactively getting assistance from us, or we're turning around and telling them, hey, by the way, there's this. Giving some advice sometimes on how to deal with situations for people.
Yeah.
Some of them might be get out of that situation.
Right. But it's like any kind of risk management. If you can have a bunch of incidents that there's nothing out of it, but the more incidents you have, eventually you work your way up to a serious.
Yeah.
That's all the comments I have.
Thank you, Councillor Tingley. Next up, Public Member Pelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. Further to all of the discussion with the intimate partner violence, I was curious to find out if there's a transition house type thing in East Hants. I've been involved in some other groups, and they're starting to do a lot more public information sessions and things like that, where family members can learn the signs of what might be hidden by someone else. But I don't think we have a transition house type place if people need to go. I think the one that is a third place transition house, I think that's in Truro though. And they're the ones who were putting off the information sessions, and I just thought I'd mention that to see if maybe that's something that East Hants, as a preventative thing or someplace to help. If it doesn't already exist, then maybe that's something that should be explored. I also just wanted to make a mention on the same kind of thing that there are some new information systems coming up. I believe that the RCMP is involved in the February 23rd human trafficking presentation that's coming out, as well as March the 23rd, there's a fraud presentation being done. So I just think that that's important to get those messages out to the community, because the more people that we tell in advance becomes more preventative in the future. Thank you.
And I'll just add a comment about the transition houses. I've never, ever called a transition house, and Corporal Simpson can probably attest to this. I've never, ever called a transition house and there's vacancy. They usually have to do some shuffling around, or they will not see somebody stuck, but at the same time, they're over capacity as well. We don't govern the transition houses. In fact, what goes on in the transition houses, generally speaking, they try to keep the police out of that. And even to the point of knowing where the transition house is, they generally won't give the location until you're ready to bring somebody to them.
Anything further, public member?
No, I'm good. I turned it off.
Okay.
Sorry.
Next up, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through the RCMP. Sorry I was a little bit tardy. I had a kid drop off this morning, and I did not want to meet any of your members trying to make it here on time. When the first thing I was brought to my attention, I received some phone calls on February 3rd. The RCMP pulled over a vehicle in Mount Uniacke, and it was seen being loaded onto a flatbed and things like that. Would that fall under one of the drunk drivers probably, or could that have been just no insurance and stuff like that, and the car was seized for that reason? Because there was a lot of people wondering what was going on, because there's been, as you guys know, different events happening in the community that have some people on a heightened sensitivity to things right now.
Generally speaking, Counselor, with regards to vehicles being loaded on flatbeds or being towed away, it is at the officer's discretion if there's going to be a continuation of the offense. Sometimes it's plain to see that there would be a continuation if you let somebody drive a vehicle away, maybe a defect in the vehicle or a plate that's so far out of registration or no insurance on the vehicle. So for any offense, the police officer can take the car and impound it for that reason.
Yeah, I just wanted the general public to know that it's not always the worst thing in the
No, it's
world
not.
that has a vehicle being towed. There are multiple different things why a vehicle can be towed. Next, as everybody's talking about intimate partner violence, I think that'd be a great topic that we could cover in our workshop session that we are gonna plan. But one of the things, I'd like to know, with, with East Hants growing, we're seeing a lot of settling of new Canadians throughout our municipality, and they all have sometimes different cultural backgrounds. And we're seeing nationally and even locally that in some cases, somebody coming forward to report something, our justice system doesn't hold anybody any longer. They let them out within 3 to 4 hours, and then the situation ramps up extremely into, we've seen nationally, some cases up to including death of the person who reported the assault in the first place due to cultural differences of the people that they believe ownership or whatever. I'm not gonna get in that part. But has there been any type of training or direction come down through the DOJ to the detachments about taking into consideration the nationality, religious background of some individuals when they come forward with a complaint and the possible repercussions that could happen upon a member confronting the accused assaulter, based upon the fact that we know our justice system is gonna let them out within 24 hours or less, and they are gonna return to the home and possibly it could be worsened. In a normal situation, the person gets charged with assault, they go in and they stay in. That's not what's happening anymore until they change bail laws at the federal level. So this is definitely a concern that I think everybody should have, because it's, you guys are doing your job, right? The justice system's letting down, but have you guys had anything internally looking at alternate measures of monitoring a situation until something becomes more concrete, that the ability to have somebody go in and get out on bail within 4 or 5 hours and re-victimize the complainant be done?
So to answer your question about monitoring things, prior to reaching the court threshold, we have victim coordinators throughout Northeast Nova District that civilians that monitor these files, read the files, and they'll send us alerts that they've seen something within this file that it has to be looked at, or there's a warning. There are other mechanisms as well through the eyes and ears of the police officers that they observe things, and it's one of the beauties of policing becoming so culturally diverse is, generally speaking, we have knowledge of a lot of cultures within the police. I'm not saying each person has it, but there is always somebody that you can reach out to and say, hey, by the way, culturally, what's the appropriate thing here, or culturally, what is something I should be looking out for? To answer your question, whether or not DOJ's sent something down, no, they have not. There's no mandated training that's come through DOJ. There is mandated training through the RCMP for intimate partner violence, and they have to certify every year on that training.
And the last question I have when it comes to the breakdown, do we have an adequate numbers of both male and female officers in the region? Because there are a lot of times that when we talk about some cultural differences, a female officer is required to actually get some of that sensitivity and some of the other things, the temperature brought down in situations rather than elevating it.
I don't control what we get staffed. I'm going to tell you that I don't think our ratio is correct of males to females. We need more female members in our office.
Okay. All right, that's all I have now. Anything else I have, I'll bring up in the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Warden, with no disrespect, I'm gonna go to Counselor Cecil Dixon, who hasn't or Deputy Warden Dixon, who hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll come back to you, if that's permissible. Counselor
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick comments. Enfield District 1, I have the Monte Vista, Port Sunwin area. The only complaints I've had recently, This is speeding on the Monte Vista onto the Renfrew Road, which goes out towards the gated community and in that area. Glad to see the community engagement. I think that's a positive for the members and for the community, and hopefully that'll be something that your members will be able to continue during the spring season and that. I think people appreciate that, and the younger people will probably become more of a friend and maybe not a person of concern later. The third item, Police Week, that comes in May, I understand. So I'm hoping that there'll be something that maybe we could help or we could be part of and work with your staff or your members and do something that would be interesting.
No, that's a great offer, thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next up, Warden.
Yeah, thank you. Just circling back to some of the other counselors who have mentioned speeding as an issue. And once again, I just want to bring forward in particular the area on the 354 McCarty Road around the elementary school. And in particular there is a lot of heavy truck traffic that drives really fast through that school zone, which is kind of amazing in that it's as close to a stop sign as it is, but I have seen it. And so, any particular attention there would, especially around the times, I have residents that live very near that school that don't allow their children to walk to school because there are no sidewalks and the shoulders aren't kept clear and the traffic is just crazy.
Especially this time of year, there are
Yeah.
no shoulders.
Yeah, so anyway, that's all, thank you.
Would anyone else care to ask any questions or comments with regard to the presentation? Seeing none, I'm gonna turn the chair over to the warden. I have a couple, just an item I'd like to mention. We've discussed a lot about speeding, especially around the school zones and the small villages and things like that. I know that the speed radar signs have been installed in Knoll, Maitland. And do we share access between the RCMP and that with regard to those speed radar signs?
I'm not aware, no.
Okay.
I would love the data from them. Like, the data would be great in determining what time would be the most effective to be in that area. Like, because
Yeah, I think
those are capable of, most speed monitors are capable of telling you how much traffic and then what the average speed was going through there.
Yeah. I'd like, hopefully this won't be to you, but hopefully that maybe we can get some kind of report from staff on with regard to those, what those signs are doing with regard to traffic. So anyway, no, speed is not, a common issue with regard all through East Hants. So, I think that all members should be aware, especially the heavy times, especially, schools taking in, letting out, things like that. And I do believe that if we all take a proactive approach to this and try to get out there, speed is a factor, that hopefully it will take hold in some of our citizens out there. So that's all I have right now currently. Anything further for the presentation? Seeing none, I'd like to thank both you gentlemen for coming in and giving your presentation. We'll look forward to the next quarterly report, and we'll look forward to the meeting with the upcoming meeting between.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. All right. Seeing nothing else, I will. It says for adjournment and break, but we're way ahead of that, the next one. So I'll adjourn this meeting of the Police Advisory Committee, and we'll turn it to Councillor Sandra Garden Cole for Corporate and Residential Services.
I'm ready to go. Okay, good morning. I'll call the Infrastructure and call the Corporate and Residential Services Committee to order. Be looking for any changes to the minutes of January 20th, 2026. Seeing no changes, the minutes are approved. Our first item is Climate Action Plan Community Engagement Update with Ann and Amy, but first we're going to go to Adam for an intro.
Good morning, Finney. We're excited to provide this update to you. You would have seen Ann's introduction quite a while ago on your agenda list. She's been with us for several months now, covering Shawnid's parental leave. And we're excited because Ann has significant background, and our focus area has been really learning the East Hants way when we're looking at climate and so forth. So today they've got an update on the what we've heard so far report, because we're still in our journey. Some of the work that Shawnid and Amy had started coming on to Ann. I will mention that the staff report I just noticed earlier wasn't attached to the agenda on Friday. I didn't pick that up for committee, so that's apologies for that. But they'll walk you through that. It is a pretty informal update to committee today, so with no formal ask. So we'll turn it over to Ann and Amy to provide that update.
Thank you, Adam. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, as you all know, East Hants is updating its Municipal Climate Change Action Plan, which we just call the MCAP, and it was originally written in 2013. The MCAP update is being branded by staff as a roadmap to resilience, and it is a weather and climate hazard risk assessment. In the context of weather and climate hazard events, it is crucial to anticipate and minimize risks that ensure that any impacts are manageable and that a timely and affordable recovery is achievable. This hazard risk assessment will be completed collaboratively across all service areas. So yes, it will be completed in concert with the official plan review. It will strengthen risk assessment processes specific to emergency management planning. It complements the master planning efforts of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, and it will align with infrastructure and operations planning. The MCAP update will be shaped not only by staff expertise, but also by research, partnerships with subject matter experts, and through thorough community engagement, which brings me to the report I have for you today. The What We Heard So Far report summarizes the results of the general public survey about weather and climate hazards. I will come back to the recommended motion and jump right into the report itself. In preparation for the MCAP update and more thorough community engagement in 2026, staff conducted a preliminary general public survey last fall. The goal of the general public survey was to provide a baseline understanding of three things. The first, what climate hazards residents are most concerned about? How ready do households feel for extreme weather events? And what is their appetite for action to reduce climate-related risks? The survey approach. The general public survey ran from September 25th to November 30th, again in 2025. It was designed to be accessible and inclusive. It used plain language, multiple response formats. There was an online version and a print version, and the survey included multiple choice and open-ended questions. It was promoted through the municipality's website, through social media, municipal communications, and at community events. So who responded? There were 323 responses to the general public survey, and responses were received from people in all polling districts. 65% of those who responded were over the age of 45, and about as many were women. Participation from equity-deserving groups was roughly proportionate to the community demographics, which is good. Now, I must say, 323 responses may only represent 1.4% of the East Hants population, but they do provide an early snapshot of major themes, which we can now use as a platform for continued conversations and, very importantly, the analysis of who responded gives us an idea about which demographics and districts we need to make a concerted effort to engage with going forward. So what did we hear? 76% of people who responded indicated that they were concerned or very concerned about climate change. 70% said that they were motivated to take action, and an equal number wanted to be assured that the municipality is doing so too. A bit unfortunately, only 34% felt prepared to protect their families and property during extreme weather events. When asked to rank the top 3 climate hazards that respondents were most concerned about, 74% chose drought. Not a big surprise. 62% chose wildfire. Again, not a big surprise. Then we dropped down to 37%. Ecosystem shifts, and a very close fourth was inland flooding. I want to clarify that when you see ecosystem shifts, interpret that fairly high ranking as a result of increasing distress about the increasing prevalence of pests and diseases, such as ticks, as well as what is an obvious loss of biodiversity to our residents and their concern for the preservation of green and wild spaces. When asked about actions that the residents would like to see the municipality take to mitigate the negative climate impacts, 5 general themes emerged, and in no particular order. 1, protecting natural assets because of the ecological functions that they provide to us. 2, using green and blue infrastructure specifically for stormwater management and to help alleviate extreme heat impacts. 3, protecting water quality and quantity. 4, having easy access to locally relevant weather and climate hazard information. And lastly, anything to help them improve energy efficiency and reduce their vulnerability to increasing energy prices and power disruptions. The next steps in terms of community engagement are to use the general public survey results to seed more conversations about climate hazard risks in 2026. We will be making sure to talk to the populations who are underrepresented in the general survey. And we will host conversations in those areas, polling districts, where survey responses were light. We have 4 youth engagement sessions scheduled before end of March. We will be at Hants East Rural High, Riverside, Hants North, and in Uniac. And we will be doing those youth engagement sessions with the Clean Foundation. Thanks to cross-departmental collaborations, I'll be meeting with community service partners in April. I will be joining in on some chamber and business conversations because climate is a business continuity consideration. I am working closely with Kelvin and Protective Services and will be joining the planning team in May for 4 public meetings. And there is much, much more to come over the next fiscal year. We will use what we've heard to ensure the MCAP update and the roadmap to resilience is practical, is equitable, and reflects real needs and priorities in East Hants. We will continue to track all of the engagement and synthesize engagement results, which will strengthen not only the MCAP, but really greatly strengthen any forthcoming funding applications for any project in any service area that will reduce a climate risk. A final What We Heard report will include all engagement activities, not only from 2025, but anything forthcoming in 2026. That's going to be included as an appendix to the MCAP report, which will be brought before council later this year or early next. Again, the What We Heard So Far report shared with you today is a summary of the preliminary community engagement results only. These results were merely the kickoff to the East Hants MCAP update. As risk assessment work is completed, we will continue to provide updates. I thank you for your attention and conclude by returning to the recommended motion. Oh, thanks. Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends that council receive as information the What We Heard So Far report dated January 2026, which summarizes the results of engagement activities conducted in 2025 as part of the Municipal Climate Change Action Plan update.
Thank you for the presentation. First to speak is Councillor Perry.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your report. In looking at the results of your survey, was the current weather cycle for that year taken into consideration? Because there's a lot of drought in there and there's a lot of stuff, but I guarantee if it was taken the year before, it would have been more flooding than drought, because 2 years ago, we had rains and flooding and people's wells being overrun with water, and then this year, they had no water. So it's kind of been a little volatile in the year-to-year ramifications upon what comes. So I'm just wondering if, I absolutely see the results of the survey from last year as being the concerns for 2025, but depending upon the weather pattern of this year, those concerns could change dramatically.
Through the chair, there is something in statistics called response bias, and you're absolutely right. The idea that drought was ranked as the #1 climate concern is likely a result of response bias because it's what we just experienced. Same with wildfire. It's raw, it's fresh in our memories. I will say that I wasn't surprised by those results, but I'm still happy to see them, because even though they're fresh in our memory, if you look at the climate data and the projections for the Nova Scotian years to come, those two hazards remain the top hazards of concern in Nova Scotia all the way through the 2050s. I will also say, as time progresses, some of these hazards are going to evolve and change in terms of their intensity and consequences. And so right now the province is telling us that drought is our top hazard and wildfire risk is our second. But as time progresses, those two will flip, and wildfire is anticipated to become more of a threat, with drought remaining a close second. And of course, as we all know, flooding is right up there, should be in the top 3 for all of us. I'm not too concerned about response bias as it comes through in the survey results, because I guarantee you that across all service areas, we will always look at all hazards and be identifying impacts from those hazard risks. And we will also be considering compounded hazards, because seldom is there only one thing at play driving a risk.
Absolutely. And are we looking at this as being like a longitudinal study of year after year, kind of going out, maybe not every year doing a survey, but every second year, and monitoring the weather patterns to create kind of like a trend and a mapping for our area? Because one of the other areas that could be dramatically affected in the next number of years could be coastal erosion for areas that aren't armored or are vulnerable, where we had to move we're moving a lighthouse because of coastal erosion. So, things like this are things that can be unique to certain parts of East Hants. Other areas it's fire, other areas it's flood. So kind of like understanding how that goes over a period of time. Normally 3 to 5 years is normally a study length time for something like that. Just rather than a 1-year snapshot. I understand this is all we could do for this year, but is that the plan going forward?
Through the chair, thank you for asking. All risk assessments are iterative processes. They are never done. Because those factors which create risk are constantly changing. And being able to make sound decisions to protect and continue operation and services amidst constant uncertainty, climate and otherwise, is a core leadership quality of any governing body in today's day and age. And so we are anticipating, and it will be the wish of the council, but we would suggest that this road to resilience is updated at least every 5 years. So yes, it will be a continual process, ideally. And when you see the final MCAP update presented to you, you will see that actions will be prioritized and phased in. So as we are looking at measures that we can take to concretely reduce our risks in an affordable and practical way, We will highlight those which need to be done, perhaps are addressed in the first 3 years, and then perhaps 3 to 8. I'm not sure what our timelines will be yet, but we'll provide a phased-in approach based on the urgency of that measure and its ability to, as I say, concretely reduce risk. But yes, this is like climate and any other drivers of risk, an evolving process.
Absolutely. All right, thank you for your report. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you, just a curiosity part on my part. I noticed there's a part there on water quality and water supply protection. And my concern is, are we working with the province to update or protect our water source, which is the Shuby River? And I'm looking more at the bridge in Enfield, which traffic goes over daily. And if something happened that a vehicle or a tractor trailer carrying chemicals ended up in the river, how would that impact the supply to Enfield, Elmsdale lands going forward? And since the flow goes from Enfield towards Shubenacadie.
Through the chair, excellent question, and you've highlighted how many various things there are to look at when doing a risk assessment. Things such as the spill of hazardous waste into the river, I'm going to say will be done in part by Kelvin's emergency preparedness plans and risk assessments. The emergency management planning world will consider those risks which may not have a direct driver from or relationship to climate or a weather disaster, but that doesn't mean that they aren't related. And you mentioned the bridge. I am aware of how few roads East Hants owns and is control of. And so one of the things that will be on the minds of staff as we try to identify action measures that can reduce our risk is the question of jurisdiction, where what we have control over and what we don't. But even in areas where we may not be in charge of the road or ditching or groundwater permitting, we will be evaluating what role we can still play as an advocate, what partnerships we might need to foster, what information we could provide to our residents to help them share the responsibility of reducing risk for our communities. So we will have to take a wide scope and a creative stance to addressing some of these issues where perhaps we don't have direct jurisdictional control. And of course, I think one of the greatest strengths of this MCAP update is that this is it's led by corporate services, but it is not a corporate services report. It is a municipal report, and I am thrilled by the collaboration that's happening across services. And so sitting behind me, is everyone's going to be involved. And so we have on staff experts of source water. Chelsea and others will be at the table, and we will be asking these questions ourselves.
Thank you for that answer. I'm just concerned that if something that I just mentioned did happen, it would affect this municipality for months, maybe years to rectify. So
Yeah.
that's my concern, and thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Next to speak is Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, to staff, can we share a copy of this report with our residents on the, because it's only a small sampling, and I think a lot more residents hopefully will step in and have their say about this. My impression is that flooding is the top, most costliest risk right now. And that's what the province says, that's what the federal government says, and that's what insurers say. And fire and drought is going to be past flooding at some point in time. I've been disappointed since I've been on council about how slow, like we have done some things around climate change, but it's been very slow, and to me, it appears we ignore the risk. This climate action plan that was done in 2013, I read the guidebook in 2011. It's just a short, easy read. It's and it talks about the risks at that time that, 80% of our coasts are at risk. We don't even want to deal with that. That's what the position we've taken so far. And I know in the district that I live in, and part of the old district that I was responsible for until the change in district areas, there's tremendous amount of flooding. And I believe it's a lot of it is preventable. The province, I believe, is aware of that. They did a stormwater needs assessment a couple of years ago that they were going to. One of the things was going to come out of it is they were going to advise municipalities how to deal with their stormwater. Now they put that on the back burner, and you can't get an answer. And we've looked at maybe doing some risk assessments around that, and we have done some smaller areas type of thing. But it's always been pointed to the province. The province points back to the municipality, and nobody's getting on with the governance. Like there's always this talk that comes up once in a while that we're going to do something about this, but I was in insurance claims for 40 years, and it just goes on and on and on. And the cost is it's going to get to the point where it's not even insurable in some areas. It isn't. It's at that point now. We have residents that can't get insurance, and I agree with you. It's up. We have to educate and work with the residents to do this. It's not all up to the municipality. The residents have a big part to play. The province has a big part to play. But right up till now, the response has been pathetic as far as I'm concerned. About half of the flooding that we, or more than half the flooding that we experience is preventable. But we're ignoring the rest. I hope by you being on staff, this moves forward a little bit faster, and we start taking it more serious. But we've been giving it lip service since I've been on council, and so has the province. And that's about all I've got to say.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just going to let Adam weigh in on this.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things. So the first point, this report will be attached to the agenda, which will be public in a few days here. All of our reports will be there. And then I think the takeaway from that comment, as the team has a full engagement plan they've built out, but also understanding where we can report back to the community and the mechanisms we can do, just speaks about not only having this report published, but future information. And then the second part, I just wanted to mention, there's a lot of hazard risk vulnerability assessments or similar processes that are in the queue right now. The province, through their EMO legislation, is mandating that, which we'll be undertaking, as well as council's heard the conversations around the fire risk assessments that will be likely legislated as well, and then the good work that we're doing in council's plan as well. So understanding how those overlap, the synergies, and how those work forward together in a meaningful way is important. And I would just conclude with saying that council has been putting a priority on updating our climate action plan and putting in the resources to enable council to have these future conversations. It was 2013 since the last time we've done our plan, but we've got the right the people and the systems in place right now, and the resourcing from council to help move these conversations forward, understand them better, and then look at your action planning as a result. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to our speakers. Great presentation. And I just, and I'll do an intro of myself. I'm Craig Merriam, the councillor for District 6 North, Lance Milford. And one of the things I'd like to add is I think people like to know that they've been heard, So I think, when I look at the report and take a look at District 6 responses, Notwithstanding your comments about, I think it was 1.4% of the population responded overall, but with that said, looking at District 6, what I'm seeing is good responses as a percentage of population from one of the charts that I saw there. And when I say that I think the residents are being heard, and, I echo a lot of what Councillor Tingley said, of course, as well, but focusing in on District 6, looking at their top concerns, inland flooding, drought, wildfire. So am I surprised? Not at all, so it's right on with what I thought it would be. And, I just wanted to mention that, the residents there are being heard. It's a process, it's ongoing, so I just wanted to mention that. And let's move that motion now, if we could as well, if you'd like to put that back up. So I'd like to move the motion. Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends that council receive as information the What We Heard So Far report dated January 2026, which summarizes the results of engagement activities conducted in 2025 as part of the Municipal Climate Change Action Plan update.
Okay, the motion has been made. On before the motion, Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, for me, I'm very disappointed in the number of responses, 300 and whatever it was responses. And I appreciate that being put into the report. But if you go down through the report, you go by percentages. And to me, anybody reading that report will have forgotten the number of responses. So by using the 76% or whatever it is, it can skew the thought of anybody reading that report, forgetting what's in the front of it. If we stuck with the actual numbers and said, let's say, not, instead of using percentages, 21 of 321 said this, then you would remain consistent in trying to get more responses in the future than calling it 70%, by calling it by a percentage at this point. And that's what my concern is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Mitchell.
Yes, just a question on the report, page 11, District 2 Elmsdale. My question, did District 2 Elmsdale, was that before the new boundary changes, when Belknap was included? Just out of curiosity, that's all.
Through the chair, this is the current alignment.
Oh, okay. So Belknap's in District 3 in this report? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no one left to speak, Warden, if you wouldn't mind taking the chair just for a moment. Thank you. So I'm looking at this chart and no surprises, although it was only 1.4% and 300 and some odd responses. I can see what Councillor Rhino is saying about switching it to percentages if you didn't actually have the chart in front of you may be misleading as far as your perception on how many people had actually responded to it. However, when I look at this, District 1 Enfield and District 10, the drought, as you talk about the most recent things that have happened, and that is no surprise, we are flanked by the river and Grand Lake. The flooding in the Lance area, the drought and the wildfire concern in the Uniacke areas, I think this really represents the different areas of our municipality and potentially the different things that affect them the most, even though we are relatively a small geographic area. So, yeah, that's just my comments. Thank you. And saying that, we have a motion on the floor. Seeing no one left to speak, we'll go to the vote. Should have 10. Is anyone left to vote?
No, that's it.
Okay. Okay. The motion has passed unanimously. That's it. Thank you for your report. Okay, we've got 20 minutes left. Do we want to start this? I'll just remind councillors to sign in again, please. Okay, counselors, our next report is scheduled for about 25 minutes. Do you want to break now, or do you want to go into that report and break afterwards? What is your wish? Counselor Musa? Okay.
Turning around for 10 minutes and couldn't find parking, and I parked way over there. I think it's time to explore more parking for this. Thank you.
Okay, counselor, we'll take that under advisement. As far as the Warden Rolston?
Now, I just think, it's 10:20 according to the clock there now. Why don't we take our break now and then come back and go into this report as opposed to maybe breaking partway through? We don't know exactly how long it might take, and that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Warden. So we will break and come back to continue this committee at 10:35.
Had an appointment.
Welcome back to Corporate and Residential Services. Next item on our agenda is bylaw A300, encroachment on municipal real property bylaw with Amy. You just want to press your button. Go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. Through the chair. So this report is proposing a new bylaw, A300, which will be called the Encroachment on Municipal Real Property Bylaw. The intent of this new bylaw is to provide a clear, consistent, and enforceable framework to help us manage encroachments on all municipal properties. And as I walk through this report, I'm going to touch base on a number of items. I do want to highlight that specific to potential fees, any decisions on that would be made at a later date in relation to the municipal fee policy. So jumping down to the background here, you all know and are familiar that this is stemming from previous in-camera discussions. So I'm not going to dive too much into the history there, including kind of what an encroachment is or why. But what I do want to do is talk about how this proposed bylaw has a few benefits to it. We want to establish fairness and transparency. We want to support consistent, defensible decision-making by both staff and council. We want to reduce municipal risk and liability exposure. We want to protect municipal infrastructure and lands. And we want to continue improving our documentation and long-term management of municipal real property. So I do want to highlight that this proposed bylaw was done with input from staff across all departments, or multiple departments, I should say, and in consultation with our legal counsel as well. There's quite a lengthy jurisdictional scan in here that is really just pertaining to fees and helping influence the conversation that we're going to have on fees in a little bit. And what I also want to highlight here before jumping into this is that the provincial examples aren't necessarily specific to encroachments, but they're still relevant enough for us to have those conversations as well. So jumping into the bylaw itself, I want to reiterate, like I said at the beginning here, this proposed bylaw is for all encroachments on all types of municipal properties. The proposed bylaw is generally prohibiting encroachments unless they are approved and permitted and licensed under the bylaw. In having discussions with our legal counsel in making this proposed bylaw, legal counsel advised that encroachment should only be permitted through a license agreement format. So the license format makes it clear that the permission granted is temporary and does not convey any possessory rights. License terms and conditions can be tailored to the nature of the encroachment and can really help us kind of avoid undue administrative burden. The proposed bylaw is currently drafted to require direction from council to enter into an encroachment license agreement unless that authority is delegated to the CAO, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the legislative authority section of the document here. So in the proposed bylaw, we have 4 categories of encroachments. I have those kind of summarized on the screen for you here. The first one, the licensed encroachment, that means encroachments that are permitted by a license agreement, exactly what it sounds like. The existing permitted encroachment is really addressing those encroachments that are more kind of historical in nature. And those would be permitted under kind of prior agreements, approvals, or other kind of common law agreements. The third definition is unauthorized encroachment. So those are ones that are not permitted or licensed under this bylaw or other prior agreements, and those are subject to removal. And then the fourth is the proposed encroachment. Again, exactly what it sounds like, newly proposed kind of encroachments that would be requested before they are constructed or installed on the property. And those would move through the application and approval process, which I will highlight briefly here today. So Section 5 of the proposed bylaw, it outlines kind of the criteria for what a license encroachment would be up against and how it would move through to the license agreement process. The themes of this were discussed at a high level in previous in-camera discussions, but I do want to highlight that in addition to kind of the 4 points you see on the screen there, which we've talked about before, we also added a subsection here where council may consider whether removal of an encroachment would create undue hardship to the property owner. So the encroachment license application process, that is outlined in Section 9. And that's where staff would review the application against the criteria I just outlined in Section 5, and then we'd bring a report forward to council. And I do want to highlight that we are permitting council through this bylaw to delegate authority to the CAO to approve groups of encroachment applications kind of at one time, where there are specific projects or properties that are impacted. So this would be an example of how we would manage the former DAR line should council choose to delegate kind of that grouped authority to the CAO rather than dealing with each individual potential agreement on a case-by-case basis. This is recommended to help minimize administrative burden and really just minimize the significant council reporting requirements as well. Jumping into section 10, this is outlining the encroachment license agreement section where council has either authorized it or delegated the authority for where an encroachment is permitted. Key points in this section is that the license is not intended to run with title, though we would put a notice on title. And the encroachment license is not transferable without further approval or written municipal consent. What we have done here, though, is authorize the CAO to approve routine licenses with term renewals or transfers or assignments where that encroachment is kind of simple, unchanged, no significant concerns, to really help minimize that administrative burden and reporting back to council. So an example of that would really be a simple sale of a property, just not having to come back and check in with council on that, especially if it's, say, an estate sale, et cetera. In terms of the removal of unauthorized encroachments in section 14, this would be where council or delegated authority has determined an encroachment is not permitted. The property owner would need to remove and restore the land at their own expense within 60 days notice, unless otherwise dictated by council or other authority. Section 15 outlines the appeals section. Appeals would be brought back to council for reconsideration. This is really where there's kind of challenges with timelines or undue hardship to the property owner or unique circumstances that were not initially captured. And new information is brought forward by the appealer. Section 16 is talking about the fees, and like I said, that will be dealt with in the municipal fee policy. But based off the aforementioned jurisdictional scans in the background section of this report, we are recommending that there be no application fee with those costs absorbed into kind of regular staff operations, but that there be an encroachment license agreement fee where council or CAO has determined that we are entering into an agreement. We're recommending a fee of $300 with HST included, and that is really to cover the costs for sending the notice to the land registration fee, courier, and a little bit of staff time as well. Section 17 outlines the municipality's ability to recover all expenses that are incurred with the enforcement of this bylaw. So that would really come into play where a property owner fails to remove an unauthorized encroachment during the determined timeline, and the municipality proceeds to remove it and recovers the expenses in the same manner as recovering taxes. So like I said, I wanted to talk about the legislative authority section for where we are permitting licensed encroachments through a license agreement. So as I said, council is drafted in this proposed bylaw as the primary authority, and the bylaw is allowing council to delegate that authority to the CAO, including again in those kind of grouped ways if we're talking about the DAR line. This authority is consistent with other authority granted under the CAO authority policy and the MGA, including council approval requirements for easements that burden municipal property and council approval for any kind of leases that are longer than a one-year agreement. What I flagged here is if council wants to delegate kind of all authority to the CAO to manage all encroachments under the bylaw, staff would have to have further conversations with legal about whether that can work. We would then revise the proposed bylaw accordingly and return at the next appropriate meeting date with a possible recommendation to amend the CAO authority policy as well. So that's kind of the quick highlights of a rather lengthy bylaw that we're proposing today. I'm just going to jump back up here to the recommended motion. So the recommended motion is to move that the Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommend that council give first reading to bylaw A300, encroachment on municipal real property. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. First to speak is Warden Rolston.
Thank you. I will not be moving this motion, and I will not be supporting this motion. I am deeply disappointed in this bylaw, in particular where it deals with encroachments on the DAR line. Now, I don't know how much can be discussed out of camera around contractual issues around the DAR line. This is not what we discussed. We discussed making people whole. We discussed giving them surety that their encroachments, as we call them, would be protected. This is simply a license that at any time, at the discretion of council, we could say, no, this license is not going to be renewed next year. You have to move your building or your fence, or you can no longer cross the rail line. I will not support that. That was not what I understood we were doing for those folks who have properties along that DAR line. And I would not have supported the licensing of a DAR line to any group to run had I not thought and felt that this was going to be dealt with in a fair and reasonable manner for the people who are being affected. And this, for me, I've read this 3 times now, and it does not do what I anticipated it was going to do. And were I a property owner on that DAR line, well, I know what my next move would be, and I'll leave it at that in this discussion. But it would not be to sign on for a license agreement with the municipality that only guaranteed me a license for 1 year. And we can say, oh, it's all right, the CAO can renew it every year going forward. Well, yes, the CAO can, but the CAO also cannot. And this does not, for me, provide the protection and the surety for those people along that DAR line, and I cannot support that.
Thank you, Warden.
Well, I'm not sure where we're at the point of a bylaw, if we have the ability to go in camera to discuss, or should or not. I will leave that for someone else to decide. I don't know.
Well, through the chair, if I may attempt to answer that and add a point of clarification first. And I do apologize for any misunderstanding, and I will be very delicate in how I respond so that it doesn't go into in-camera territory. Through the proposed bylaw, we can manage the DAR conversation and the making it whole with the way that it is currently structured. This proposed bylaw allows the authority to be delegated to the CAO for kind of group-specific projects. And at no point have we defined in this bylaw what the term of that agreement would be. I did say 1 year in terms of relation to the MGA permission of authorizing a CAO to enter into an agreement more than 1 year. It does require council authority, which is why I'm recommending this be at the council authority level. But we can have conversations, and that's part of the reason why I'm wanting to bring back the majority of these to council to talk about the terms and conditions of what those would be. It is our legal counsel's advice that the agreement structure for an encroachment agreement be structured as a license agreement. We did allude to that conversation in camera. I perhaps did not speak to it that overtly because those conversations, majority of those conversations with legal counsel have occurred after our in-camera discussion in the creation of this bylaw. And it is to avoid the adverse possession conversations that we've previously talked about as well. But there are terms and conditions and structures through this bylaw that allow us to manage individual situations the way that we need to within the philosophies of what we've talked about in other conversations.
That still doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. I do not feel that the people who are going to be affected are adequately protected. And it was not my understanding that that's how this was going to work. I understood that we were, in the interest of fairness and transparency, we were going to treat those people who were adjacent to that rail line for many, many years, many of whom expected the land to revert to them at some point in time, and it didn't. And we were going to give them some surety. We were going to make what existed in most cases, we were going to make that right. We were going to make it whole. And this, for me, does not do that. This does not reflect the spirit of the discussions that I participated in. And I am extremely, extremely uncomfortable. I will feel, if this goes through, I will feel that I have misled my residents and that I have not properly represented them. That's how strongly I feel about this. Thank you.
Again. Okay, just going to turn it over to the CAO.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I guess I'm not, I don't see the warden's concerns and in that, and maybe it's my interpretation, the DAR line example, for instance, the intention of this bylaw and of the report would be to keep those people whole, but also to make sure that any further encroachments don't happen without municipal approval. So you're sort of keeping everybody whole with.
But you're not.
The only thing that we're asking them to do is sign an agreement those agreements could be structured that they are like a 99-year agreement, if that's what council would be responsible for making those encroachment agreements with whomever throughout this process. So the documentation of the encroachment protects the municipality, but it also protects the resident from future councils making decisions that aren't in line with the council who's doing that project in the present day. So we did have that conversation at the staff level. We know it's important for council to keep those folks whole. The documentation of this through an agreement is really the responsible thing to do for both parties. And I guess we'll take our direction from council how you want to do that. Perhaps we do need to go in camera to talk about what you don't think this will do for certain parties. But in general, I think we've spoken at enough public meetings around the DAR that council has indicated in public that they intend to keep those folks whole. I believe this bylaw enables council to do that. I don't have the authority to do anything in this bylaw unless you give it to me. So whatever direction you give me with respect to a particular group of encroachments, I will take that direction from council, and that's how we'll structure the agreement. So it allows you that flexibility, but it also protects you against adverse possession. It protects you against people doing more on your land than they're permitted to do so or that they're already doing. So I do think for future generations of councils and for future generations of those folks who have existing encroachments and their estates, for example, you do need to put something in writing. If that's the problem, is putting it in writing into a license agreement, whether it be a 10 or 99 year, then that's something we'll have to talk about. But I'm not sure what part of this would be not in line with the direction that we received. Thank you.
Encroachment license agreements are not intended to run with title, and the license is not transferable without written consent of the municipality. However, a notice will be registered on title. That pretty much states that it's not a given, that if the property is sold or passed on by way of an estate, there is no guarantee to those folks that that license is going to go with the property or be renewed. And we can say all we want, well, that would be the intent, but that's not what it says. That relies on the goodwill of whoever, whatever council or whoever's making the decision at that time. And that is not making the property owners whole. I respectfully say, and should this pass, I apologize unreservedly to the residents in my area, and those are the residents. The majority of those residents who are going to be impacted by this live in my area, and the rest of them live in Councillor Rhino's area. And, you know, it's very important to me that the spirit of what we were doing is met, and I don't see that here. And maybe we shouldn't have encompassed the DAR line with the other encroachment bylaw. I don't know. But I still am not comfortable. This just leaves too many doors open to too many possibilities down the road. But these people are no longer sure. They don't know if they will their properties to their son, daughter, whoever. There's no guarantee for them that that license will be kept in place. There isn't. And if they want to sell their property, it doesn't go with the property. It's non-transferable. Council, whenever that would be, would have to approve that. And that's not making people whole. That's my comment. And there are, I'm not going to say anymore because we're not in camera, but this doesn't work for me. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, for that particular group of people, if council wanted them to run with the property, they could. Those agreements could be structured that way. The benefit of having to renew that license, and the bylaw says it will be renewed unless, is for any new ownership, any new owner to understand that their property is under license agreement with the municipality. It's not to take it away, it's to make sure that the person who owns the property understands the relationship of that easement. That's just good practice to be in, but for any particular group of people, if you're entering into sort of a bunch of license agreements at a time, council can structure those agreements however they see fit. So if that's a protection that you would want in there at that time, then that's a protection we could put into those particular license agreements. It wouldn't necessarily be something that, I wouldn't, and you can put in there about the automatic renewal if the property sells. But I wouldn't take that piece out, because it is important that any new owner understand the relationship they have with their land, and that relationship the municipality has with their land as well. It may be from like a father to a son, or a mother to a daughter, or whatever in a family, but it also may not be. So it's important that those folks understand, anyone who's transferring land understands what the relationship is between them and their land, and any encroachments that are on there. So, not speaking specifically about the DAR, but if you had a group of encroachments that you wanted to make sure were licensed in a certain way, then those license agreements could be structured however council sees fit.
Well, for me,
There's flexibility in this bylaw to do that.
I cannot support this bylaw until the details around the DAR line in particular are worked out and down in black and white, and I see what they are. I cannot vote in favor of a bylaw that I don't know what the end meaning is going to be for those folks. I cannot, in all good conscience, do that.
Thank you, Gordon. Councillor Merriam.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Amy, for the presentation. I think I know the answer to this, but just for the sake of clarity, so in respect of the DAR line, my understanding is at least an old process that the province had in relation to the Annapolis Valley portion of the line would be door number one, a licensing agreement, door number two, an easement process where the user would pay, if they chose door number two, they would pay costs. So they'd pay legal, they'd pay survey, they'd pay lots of costs. So just for clarity with what's on the table now, there's no door number two. It's door number one, licensing. Do I understand that correctly?
Through the chair, to help answer that question, I'm going to remind everybody that there's been two separate conversations around the DAR land management, which is both encroachments and easements. Door number one is what we're talking about today, which would be the encroachment side of things. The kind of easement agreement is a separate use of land conversation. So what we're talking about today is really where it's part of a building or part of a shed, not like a driveway or a crossing. Those would be dealt with separately under our existing authority with the CAO for easements, driveway crossings, right-of-ways, et cetera, which we've already had in-camera discussions around what that could, should, will look like. Today, the bylaw in front of you is for the encroachment side, where again, there's part of that kind of tangible infrastructure of some sort that is encroaching on municipal property, and those would be under kind of the option one you just said. Under this proposal is a license agreement to allow that portion of infrastructure, et cetera, to remain under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you for that clarification. So I guess if there is an encroachment, by its very nature, we wouldn't expect for there to be an existing easement in place. Would that be a fair comment?
Through
or
the chair, that
question?
would be a majority of the time a fair comment, yes. There might
Okay.
be some unique circumstances, but at least like speaking to the DAR example that we've talked about, we've explored that situation already, which is also why there isn't necessarily that exhaustive same need for surveying, et cetera, because of the work that we've already invested into that.
So in relation to the encroachment on the DAR line, if the solution would not be looking at solutions specifically with encroachment, there's no easement option, it would be the licensing option.
That would-
Specifically in relation to encroachments, is that, do I understand
When
correctly?
considering the overall best interests of the municipality without getting into details, correct.
Okay, yep, thank you. Two other quick questions. One was section 19 in the bylaw regarding offenses, contravention of the bylaws, 19.1. You know, it speaks to being guilty of an offense, and I'm just curious, you know, there's no mention of penalty. Perhaps it's not appropriate at all for it to be there, but I just thought, I wonder what the penalty is.
Through the chair, so 19 is language that was given to me directly from our legal counsel when looking at some other examples of bylaws that we already have in our inventory. There is no intention here to be writing any kind of, offense ticket. It's more so in relation to if we need to enforce where there has been deemed an unauthorized encroachment, where we have provided notice and asked a property owner to remove the encroachment within 60 days, et cetera, whatever has been determined by council, and they do not follow that, then we can consider that an offense and then go after the enforcement of recovery of funds, et cetera, if we were to remove it ourselves.
Sort of a trigger or a tort kind of language, I guess, that lets further action be taken as opposed to trying to trigger a financial penalty. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay, thank you. And yeah, as far as, I guess, looking at duration of the agreement and ongoing fee structure, I do see that fees will be, I guess, a separate conversation with council, but I guess I saw more of an upfront fee for the agreement, but not so much language on renewal fees. Is that sort of to be determined in terms of would there be an annual administration fee, or that just hasn't been fleshed out yet?
Through the chair, there was no intention for an annual administration fee, but there is that $300 recommended fee for an agreement. And
Yes.
I believe there's language in there as well. I can't remember the section off the top of my head, but should council delegate the authority to the CAO to conduct a renewal or in that kind of transfer conversation where it's being assigned to a son, daughter, et cetera, it gives the option to reinstate that $300 fee again, because again, that fee is presented to, it can also be waived, but it's presented to deal with the fees for registering the notice against title or the agreement against title, if that were to be the will of council, and for courier costs and very small, you're not actually recovering staff time in this, I will be clear on that. But it's just to help out with those kind of administrative fees of courier, registration of the land registry, et cetera.
Okay. Actually, one last question as I think of it. Could there be a situation where someone has a driveway that goes from one piece of land they own to the other, and, it could be an easement, but we're seeing it as an encroachment? Could you have, would that, forgive me, I should probably know that, but would there be a lot of those, or that doesn't apply, like a straight driveway, one piece of land to another, connecting, their properties going across the DAR line? Would we see, are there some instances where we would see that specific example as an encroachment, and they could have had an easement in place, but they didn't? Can you color that in a little
Through the
bit?
chair, as long as I'm sitting here, that would be an easement. Anything that is crossing from A to B would be an easement. It would be a land access right of way, which is dealt with under the easement side of things. Even if it was a paved driveway and you would look at that as more of infrastructure-y, that whatever that pavement, gravel, dirt crossing would still be dealt with as an easement, as an agreement structure, not an encroachment.
Okay, so looking at our universe of encroachments, that example I gave would, you'd be very surprised to kind of see that populated with driveway examples?
Through the chair, in my entire 10+ years of working in the real estate adjacent world for municipalities, I've never seen that addressed as an encroachment. I've only ever seen that dealt with as an easement crossing.
I promised my last question. So if you were to give the top 5 examples of straight encroachments, like what kind of examples would come to mind?
You could see a portion of a building, you could see a portion of a garage, a deck, you could see fencing. You can look at it as landscaping, if someone goes and puts in a garden, or even kind of boulevard type landscaping. It's very different if you're in an urban area versus a rural area.
But it could be it could be the corner of someone's house though, potentially.
Correct, it could be a portion of someone's dwelling.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not see the same in this thing as the warden sees. I do not see it. I do not understand the spirit she's talking about, but everybody has their own interpretation of things. We are not just creating a bylaw for one group of people, this is a bylaw for the whole municipality. We are gonna come across situations similar to what is currently on the topic of the day, the DAR line, in other areas of the municipality. And we have to make sure that whatever rules we apply are the same for all. We're not gonna have a two-tier rule system in this municipality. I will not support one, ever, for a two-tier rule system that this group of people doesn't have to do, but everybody after them has to do it. No. We make one rule of law, our bylaws affect everybody. With the concerns with the transfer of ownership, I do believe that we need to make sure that if it transfers ownership, they have to come back in for licensing, because many times easements aren't even given out to the people who buy property. They think they own it. And there's been many cases where you now have court battles of people fighting over because people build through an easement or deny entry to people through easements. In this situation, it would ensure that every property owner, and every time it changed hands, because it won't always change to family, they understand what their rights are, that if the corner of their building is an encroachment, they cannot build an extension on their house moving that way. The house they are buying that's the envelope they can do. They can only build the opposite way. Those are things that homeowners and future residents need to be protected against, where they purchase a place with the understanding of one thing, and then once it's in their possession, they can't do something. And we've seen it with the property tax information all the time, realtors and people disclosing what they pay for taxes, not putting it fully out there that they're capped at about 1/3 the value of their home. So I see nothing wrong with this bylaw, because when it comes to fee structures and groups, it comes back to us. Any council of the day can set the price, can set the thing for what's going on moving forward. So I don't see the need to, make exceptions for people, because we have the ability to do that in a further motion of council when we come and we go and we set an area. Am I not correct with that, Amy?
Through the chair, in terms of setting fees in relation to managing encroachments, you absolutely
Yes.
could choose to waive the fee for very
We can
specific
waive the
situations.
fees, we can set the term limits, and we can set everything. And that can be done every time that there's an encroachment that comes before council.
Through the chair, correct.
Correct. So for right there, I see we have the flexibility to decide under this plan, and it's one rule for all. So for that reason, I'm gonna move the recommended motion that Corporate and Residential Service Committee recommend the council give first reading to bylaw A300 encroachment on municipal real property.
Moved and seconded. On before the motion, Warden Rolston.
Thank you. Well, obviously, I'm in disagreement with my fellow counselor, and I will not be supporting that motion. The DAR line is different. It's not like setting and enforcing laws different. It is different. It is a property that we bought with pre-existing encroachments on there. It is property that we bought where if there are buildings encroaching on that property, we gave building permits for those buildings, people. These are properties that are involved that we haven't done a full survey of the line. We have sketches. We're not even 100% sure in some cases because it's a matter of feet. And I just believe that the DAR line should be separated out of this. I truly do, until we have a better recognition. As far as other encroachments and street encroachments and all that stuff, I don't have a problem with it. It is as it applies to the DAR line, which the municipality purchased, with all its encroachments and easements and issues and everything that goes with it. And I really believe that in the public meetings I attended and in the conversations that I heard, that this council was committed to those residents who live along that DAR line, in many cases who wouldn't have known that they were encroached on the DAR line. They got a permit for their garage or for their house or whatever. So my only,
Is there any evidence that they got permits for all the buildings?
there's no evidence that they didn't.
Right, so it's.
Point of order.
Yeah, okay. Warden, go ahead. That's.
Thank you. I'm simply saying that it was my understanding and my intent to work with these landowners, to make these landowners, and the term was not coined by me, to make them whole. And there are too many loopholes in this that can be plugged later for my comfort level. That's all. That's all I'm saying. So I am making a motion to table this motion until such time as staff can come back with a more detailed plan around the lease options for properties bordering the DAR line.
Madam Chair, there's a motion on the floor. How do you make a motion?
I can move to table that motion.
She moved to table it. Motion's been made and seconded. On before the motion.
No discussion to a motion to table.
Okay. Motion to table. Okay, and the motion has failed with a vote of 5-4. With Deputy Warden. Am I saying who voted for?
Either or.
Okay. Voting against is Counselor Merriam, Counselor Musa, Counselor Perry, Counselor Mitchell, and Counselor Tingley. Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
There might be more discussion on it.
Counselor Rhino. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I read the report, and in general, I thought, okay, this seems fair. However, and when the warden, I'll be honest, when the warden brought this up, I didn't see it in the light. But what brought me around a little bit was the definition of encroachment that staff has put forward. And I can see it. That, to me, that DAR line has a lot of this definition of encroachment along there. I think, I do believe that while in general this policy may be decent, I do believe that the DAR line is an entity that is a little different and quite a bit different in that. And I remember those public meetings, and the public wanted the properties protected and the use of which they were doing them, crossing them or so on, or their portion of their buildings or structures that were within that encroachment protected. So I can see where the warden's coming from, exactly where the warden's coming from. Because I think, a more thorough discussion around that DAR line encroachment is needed, is necessary. Because let's say you had a building or a corner of a house that was within that right of way, then, things can change. If it's not set in stone, what we can and can't do with them, and it's subject to further councils who may have a differing view, who may have an opposing view, who may be so authoritarian, God help, that they're gonna do it their way or to hell with everybody else. We have staff that's gonna change over in the next number of years. So what protection, if this goes through, to me, I can see what the warden is saying, it doesn't offer the protection going forward. We'll be at the will of staff and council going forward. To me, I think we should have a separate issue and write this in as a subsection with regard to the DAR line. We have this and that, and then go on from there. I really think that we have to look at this special DAR line as a special entity within the municipality. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Perry.
I can respect what the warden and counselor, sorry, there's a wrong name tag in front of you, Counselor Rhino, right? I was gonna be like, Counselor Cluett, who's that? No. I respect what they're saying, but, there's the Windsor to Windsor Junction rail line that has been talked about for development. And there's other things that are gonna come up that the municipality is gonna get involved with pre-existing encroachments on them. And so, one plan for all is the most fair and just way. And that's why I support the motion, because I do not think it is going to inhibit the people on the DAR. I think that having this and the ability that there has to be renewed when the property changes hand protects the current owners along the DAR line and all future owners of the DAR line from being misrepresented when they purchase a property, that they will always know exactly what encroachments they do have on other right-of-way lands, so they will be able to make a reasonable decision, whether it's a sale or purchase along that line. And that's why I'm supporting this law, and that's my second time speaking, so I'll stop.
CAO.
Through you, Madam Chair. So just as a reminder, council approved the funding of a position to deal with the DAR line easements and encroachments over the next year. This council will still be the council of the day when those agreements all get put in front of you and approved. So the intent of this is to make sure that council, and in the DAR line examples, it will be this council, has complete authority to enter into those agreements. In any of these agreements, if there is an existing encroachment that council feels should be honored, then you can write whatever you want into those license agreements. You do need a license agreement though, because what you don't want is for them to not understand, and the next people who own their property to not understand that there is an encroachment. So you don't want to add to that encroachment. You need to protect the municipality in that way. Not to say you can't add to the encroachment at a later date, it's just not a given. So if they wanted to, if they had a house and they wanted to expand and it was going to further encroach on municipal land, they would have to come to council and ask for that permission to do so. At that point, you could say yay or nay, and you can make that agreement whatever you want it to be. And that might be you, it might be a future council. So there is no intent here to not move forward as council envisions. There is a risk if you waited to another council, to the next, till after 2028, but I don't believe that's the intent of this council. So the intent is that we get this done and cleaned up in the next year and a half or so, and then you move on. So council can vote on this however they want. I just wanted from a, when you say you're at the whim of staff, staff take our direction from council. And if this council has given us direction, and that's where how we intend to move forward with it.
Thank you. Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, Yeah, I understand Councillor Rhino and the warden's concerns, but listening to Councillor Perry and the CAO, and especially Amy, like, that was a good report. And all your answers that you provided come across very sharp to me. I think this, and my understanding is we got legal advice around this bylaw. Like, I like to follow legal advice. And I think it's just good communication, as has been explained, between the municipality and these property owners or future property owners. And if you don't have clear communication like this, it will cause problems down the road. So those are my only comments, and I am in support of the motion. That's it.
Thank you. Warden Rolston?
Clear communication is good, but I can tell you, the residents aren't going to see this as what they thought they were going to hear from what we told them in the past. The concern here is that when we decided to deal with encroachments, we were going to fold it in with an encompassing encroachment bylaw for the municipality, which has been done. But my problem is that in doing that, I think we have lost sight of some of the specific circumstances around the DAR line, and no one can pretend that the DAR line is the same as other street encroachments and that might occur from time to time. I would not be anticipating that anyone with an encroachment on the DAR line or any municipal property would be coming and saying, I'd like to build a porch on my house and I'd like to build it in your right-of-way. You know, certainly I see protection from that happening. My only point is that before we do this bylaw, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. I truly do, because I do think there has to be something that gives people the insurance that they will be protected, that they won't be putting their home for sale only to hear, hold on, you have an encroachment, you have a license for it. Before you can sell your home, you have to make sure that can be transferred, or the person who wants to buy your home can't get a mortgage to buy it. Like, we're entering all kinds of issues here. And that's my concern. I just want the surety that that's going to be. And in my mind, the best way for that surety is to have a separate section around the DAR line with those explored in more detail. That's all. Not meaning to pick a fight with people or anything, but I was of the opinion, whether others share it or not, that our bylaw would be doing the same as the easements would do, and would be bringing comfort and surety to the property owners around the DAR line. And yes, we had legal advice on this bylaw, which is great, but that's not to say, if we go back to legal and say we have concerns about this, what would your advice be to deal with that? That we wouldn't get an answer. So, you know, that's, council can vote with their conscience, each and every one. I will be voting against this for the simple reason I think we can do more. I think we can provide more detail and more surety before we enshrine this. And by doing that, we may well cut down on the paperwork and the time later on as we negotiate all these encroachment licenses and everything. If we have something right within the bylaw around the DAR line, then that should make that process a little smoother and a little easier. And that's how I feel, and I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Seeing no one left to speak, can you take the chair, please? So I've been on council for years and been hearing about the DAR line every one of those years since I've been on council. I don't see how any councillor could not see the DAR line and its situation as being different. The municipality spearheaded this project, and it is a responsibility to protect the residents. Excuse me.
Order.
It's my turn to speak. The municipality has alluded to the residents how this is going to take place for them, and I feel that this would be contradictory to that. We can't rely on the future of staff or council going forward that they can protect them. And for that reason, I just don't see this working for the DAR line. Thank you.
Turn the chair back over to you.
Thank you. Councillor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, speaking again about treating the DAR line a little differently, you know, we're gonna go out and we're gonna start to negotiate with those people that border that and so on and so forth. I think, you know, if we pass this the way it is, and with the division in council as in similar, that if it goes, the similar as the table motion, I think they're gonna see, okay, there was a unanimous decision on this. This was, you know, there are gonna be problems down the road, and we're all about trying to get out there and work with the people. I think it would give the air of possibly heavy-handedness and not knowing, and this is how it would be taken, with a possible heavy-handedness in this. My idea would be to come back with a separate report with regard to the DAR line encroachment. That way it was hopefully set up a better atmosphere going forward to deal with the people in the future along the DAR line. Because we can see by a number of things over the past number of years, how people got upset and come out in droves and really voiced their opinion very strongly, which I think is great. But we created that atmosphere, so I don't want to create another atmosphere of uncertainty there that will start up us against them attitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no one left to speak, there is a motion on the floor. We'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed with a vote of 6-3, with myself, Warden Rolston, and Councillor Rhino voting nay. Warden Rolston?
Thank you. Well, I'm disappointed in that, but however, the will of council is the will of council. I am going to make a motion, though, that we ask staff to bring back a report outlining how this bylaw would work around properties adjoining and adjacent to the DAR line.
Motion made and seconded. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the vote. Motion has passed with a vote of 8-1, with Councillor Mitchell voting nay. Next item on the agenda is Bylaw P 1000-2, an amendment to Bylaw P 1000, Dog Bylaw Municipal Fee Policy with Kelly Ash. Just get you to press your button there. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As everyone's aware, the SPCA gave us notice late last year that they were terminating their contract with us for dog control services. So with the upcoming transition of those services back to the municipality, we decided to take a look at the bylaw and see if there was anything we wanted to clean up. The last time we looked at this bylaw was in 2019, and normally it's reviewed every 5 years. So we did look at it in 2024, but we didn't have anything at the time because the SPCA hadn't identified any issues. So So now we're looking at it, and with the change from annual tags to lifetime tags, we decided to make a few changes. So the MGA gives us the authority to do that, and some of the following amendments are proposed. So we've updated the definition for kennel to require a license for the breeding only for the purpose of this bylaw. Anything else to do with boarding and doggy daycares is dealt with under the land use bylaw. The definition of noise has been updated to provide some clarity and guidance to staff and residents when we're investigating dog barking complaints. We've added a definition for what constitutes a neighborhood and what's defined as persistently. Again, it's mostly related to barking complaints based on the history we've had with stuff that's come in. We've removed all references to annual dog tags and replaced them with lifetime tags after we transitioned to that last year. And we've added an option for a dog to be microchipped in lieu of a tag. So as a result as well of additional the dog control coming back to East Hants, we will now have our kennel operator that will be under our control. So we had to go back and make some amendments to the municipal fee policy as well. So we proposed an impound fee. For a first offense, which would be $50. Then we've got subsequent offenses, so $75 for a second offense and $100 for every third or thereafter. We also have proposed a daily boarding fee of $85, and the boarding fees are done as a method of cost recovery. So we've attached the municipal fee policy as well as the dog bylaw and a jurisdictional scan for impound fees and boarding fees as a part of this report. And the recommended motion is that the amended dog bylaw be given first reading and that the amended municipal fees policy be approved. And the recommended motions are up for you to review. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that report. First to speak is Councillor Merriam.
Thank you through the chair to Kelly. Thank you for the presentation. One comment I wanted to point out, just a very minor thing and one that would be found eventually, but in the draft with changes and the final looking one, if you look at the numbering sequence in section 2 definitions, it looks like we just have kind of a little typo with, at least in the copy I had, after the first V, I believe it should go WXY. And I think we have like a, I don't know if you want to bring it
sure,
up, but it just looks like the order is a little bit out.
Okay.
So I thought I would point that out to you. And I wanted to mention as well, again, kind of a minor thing, but for wordsmithing, I know the definition does say kind of like dog tag equals microchip equals equals licensing. So it's all kind of, you know, covered in the details. But when you look at the section on 9.3 in the bylaw, and it just refers specifically to, I think it's like older language that just hasn't been kind of cleaned up. And I was just curious to kind of see what that looked like. So it kind of reads, if the dog does not have a tag. You know, and then it goes on to talk about, you know, how the dog could be euthanized and so on. And, you know, I know it's covered in the definitions, and this could be, you know, down the road or something if further wordsmithing is done. But, you know, those sections could say something like, if the dog is unlicensed or if the municipality can't ascertain the owner's name and address. So I just like, you know, consistent, clean language. And then, because otherwise you're kind of going back and like, where does it, you know, kind of speak to that. But overall, great report. I didn't have any issue with you know, the fees or anything. And if you'd like to take it back, I'd be happy to do the motion.
Yep.
Was I right on the numbering?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's just a matter of.
Yeah, just a very small thing. Okay, great. Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends that council give first reading to bylaw P1002, an amendment to bylaw P1000 dog bylaw, and that council gives notice of intent for updates to the municipal fee policy, including the addition of impound and boarding fees as attached to the executive committee agenda dated February 17th, 2026.
Motion made and seconded. On before the motion. Deputy Warden Dixon.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a couple quick questions for the staff. Do we know how many infractions we've had the previous years, like with dogs, with staff being, or SPCA being called out?
Through you, Madam Chair, yeah, we do have a history, we do have a statistic there. I don't have it on the top of my head right now, but we do get a monthly report from the SPCA every month that tells us how many calls were made and what they look like.
I was just curious, how many calls and how many are repeat calls?
Through you, Madam Chair, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Warden Rolston.
Thank you. My question is around the daily boarding fee. And I had a look at the jurisdictional scan, and we would be at the very highest of anyone there, well over double, triple most of them. And I understand that we would have to be boarding outside East Hants. But my concern is around not repeat offenders who, let their dogs run amok. But it's around the homeowner who, and it happens, their dog escapes. It escapes their fenced yard. It gets off the lead, it gets away and it's lost. And it is a traumatic time for folks searching for their pet. And in the event that pets like that get picked up and get taken to a boarding facility, $85 a day, and maybe it's picked up on a Friday and it's there all weekend and the owner doesn't discover it's there till Monday or later, and there's a significant fee that might be quite a hardship for some people. So I just wonder if, I understand it costs us what it costs us at this point, but I just wonder, is there some way that we could say, and I see some of the fees there have a much lesser amount for the first day and maybe even the second day, and more thereafter, or something like that. I don't know, but I'd like to see us look at something like that. And if it's costing $85 a day for us to board these dogs, then I know we didn't get a lot of response when we went to market, but I really think we have to dig a little deeper and try and find something better that doesn't involve us having to charge people a way more than any other municipality does if their dog should get picked up. And those are just my concerns. They're, around the folks who try their best, but things do happen, and you see the Lost Dog Network and people picking up dogs and that all the time. And so I'm just a little concerned about that $85 a day fee. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. CAO, would you like to weigh in on that?
I would, thank you. So Councillors, Kelly actually had this fee lower initially when it came to me. And my question was, well, why would the taxpayer pick up the bill for someone else's dog being boarded if that's a cost recovery for us? So we did increase it at my request, I guess. It really is up to you whether you want to cost recovery or whether you think the taxpayer should foot the bill to board somebody's dog if it gets lost. So that is a decision that you can make. We did, we certainly look for jurisdictional scans and whatnot, but you don't know whether something is a direct cost recovery or not. For us, this is direct cost recovery. There's no profit to be made in dog control. You already have significant amount of money going into managing the service. And this is one area where you can directly cost recover if you want, but again, it's up to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Next to speak is Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question through the staff. In the fees that are being charged, is this taking into account staff time, fuel, and other expenses, or are we just?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, not really. I mean, if we had to look at what we would take to have somebody call out for something like that, if it happens outside of our regular business hours and things like that, I think we just looked at the jurisdictional scan that was there for what most other municipalities were charging. And I even looked at what we charged when we had it back in our bylaw in 2017. So we tried to be reasonable in that, but we want to make sure that people also aren't letting their dogs roam and just expecting us to pick them up and then hold them for the weekend for whatever reason. So we wanted to have it to be enough of a deterrent for that not to happen.
So after hours, staff time is involved plus other expenses. Is the kennels open 24/7?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, it is, but we don't operate 24/7.
We don't operate, so. So the person that would be picking up these pets would have to go up, drop them off, and then go back and get them and then return them to the household?
Through you, Madam Chair, what the protocol will be, that is if someone claims their dog, they'll claim them through us. They will pay the fees here, and then we will give them the okay and the kennel operator the okay for them to release that animal to that person.
So the owner would go out and pick up their pet?
Correct.
Okay. I just don't think the taxpayer should be paying for covering the cost for the extras, that's all.
Thank you. Counselor Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question through you to staff. For the verification of the microchipping, is there a certain form or a certain place? Because I do know a lot of people have their dogs microchipped, but their dogs are 5, 8, 10 years old, and for them to find their adoption paperwork on their dogs would be very difficult right now. Could you just outline a process they could go through to provide that data?
Through you, Madam Chair, I actually don't know if we've done a whole lot with that yet, Councillor Perry. What we kind of talked about internally when we put that option in there was that they still have to buy a tag so that we can have them in our database. They just don't necessarily have to wear that tag because we also have a microchip reader. So then as long as that information is accurate and they can prove it's accurate, then we wouldn't penalize them or give them a fine for not having the tag on.
Well, that's what I'm going at. Like, if
Yeah.
somebody wants to be able to provide that data back to the municipality, what would be the best way for a resident to go about that so they could have that provided?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I'm not entirely sure at the moment. I think that's something we'll have to talk about a little bit further in-house to see what that looks like or how we can update the application form to say if they have a microchip to include that information.
Okay.
Potentially.
No, thank you. As long as it's being under consideration, because with the 1 year or the lifetime thing, I see a lot of people, well, yeah, my dog's microchipped, but if they can't find the paperwork, they're gonna wanna know a process of how they can provide that. Thank you.
Warden Ralston.
Thank you. Well, I guess for me, I'm looking at a bit of a worst-case scenario here. Let's look at a single-parent home with a couple of kids and they have a pet dog. A 5-year-old opens the door to go out and play and inadvertently lets the dog out. Perhaps the dog's a beagle. The dog gets out and runs free and doesn't stop for miles, literally miles. Dog has been licensed with the municipality, but in his travels of freedom, he's lost the tag off his collar. So the dog is picked up and taken to our kennel. We don't have the tag to refer to see who this dog belongs to. We don't have, there's no microchip. So the family is probably going to spend the rest of that day looking in the neighborhood and around for the dog. And if it's on the weekend, I don't know if there's a number they can call to check and see if the dog's been impounded or not. But my worst case scenario has them finding out that the municipality has impounded their dog maybe 2 days later. So there's $170 they now owe, plus an impound fee if it's a first offense of, $50. So they're now at over $200. But they have to pay to get the family pet back. We're a single parent, one income home. And what happens if they can't come up with the $200+ to get the dog back for the children? And I know people say the taxpayer shouldn't have to pick that up, but I'm telling you folks, the taxpayer's paying the full cost of this. The taxpayer is picking up the fee for dog control. The taxpayer's paying to collect this dog. The taxpayer's paying the salary of the person who investigates these complaints. And if you want to look at it that way, there are a lot of taxpayers in East Hants that don't own dogs. So to me, it's a little different than a straight taxpayer shouldn't have to pay this, because if it's a service that East Hants is offering, then the taxpayer's paying for it. That's how it works. And that's the type of situation, and I know maybe that is a worst case scenario, but that very easily could happen. You could have a family who can afford to feed their dog and look after their dog, and through child error or inadvertent circumstances, something happens. And I would just like us to have at least, I don't know how it would work, but the ability to address circumstances like that built into this somehow, whether it's an ability to waive the fee under specific circumstances. I don't know what it looks like, but I don't think any of us want to keep the family pet, but they can't afford to pay the 2-day impound fee. And that we don't want to keep it there another week or 2 weeks until such time as we have to euthanize the dog. That's, I don't think, what we want to do. So I'd like some way to have a little empathy built into this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Rhino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And not having at hand the number of calls or that the SPCA did, or the number of impounds and stuff like that, I would imagine it was discussed at the staff level, the cost of implementing our own kennel. And I know we used to have one years ago in Georgefield. Let me put it that way. I won't go the other way today. But anyway, and I think there was climate-related issues to that one. I'm just, hearing this discussion, could you give me some kind of rough costing if we did have our own kennels and anything associated with that? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, we hadn't really looked at it, Councillor Rhino, mostly because the last time we had it at the Waste Management Center, it's a really hard thing to manage because also you have to have somebody going back and forth there multiple times a day to check on a dog that's impounded, whether it's weekends and stuff like that. So I think we just looked at it financially that wasn't a feasible option for us at the time, and to have a separate kennel that is supported and has all that coverage and has all that support and staffing already in place was a more responsible, I guess financially responsible alternative for us. So we haven't really looked at it.
Councillor Rhino, go ahead.
If I can, thank you. Again, do these kennels offer back and forth to check on the animals? We don't know that. We're obviously, I think we're only going to have to take their word for it. I would love to see, I'm not saying let's go gung ho and build something, but I think we should know the option that we could go with if down the road we chose to. I know there's a cost to it. Don't get me wrong, but I want something to compare of how long we're going to pay for this kennel compared to if we went with our own and everything else associated with it, as you mentioned. So, thank you.
Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think the CAO would like to weigh in first before I say anything else.
Go ahead, CO.
So councillors, I think there's a couple of things here. One is we're entering back into this service and, you've got a $90,000 budget, I think, to get back into the service alone. So I would not recommend that you go back to having dogs kenneled at the Waste Management Center. The kennel that we'll be engaging with does have 24/7 staff at the kennel. If there's dogs there, there is someone there with them. And I think that's an important element. You can do whatever you like in this circumstance. To the warden's point around, mistakes happen and family pets go missing and there's lots of trauma involved with that. You could say something like, everybody gets one freebie. Everybody gets a free pickup once in their lifetime for each dog. The second time, okay, maybe it's not a mistake. Now you haven't put things in place to mitigate it. Now there is the charge in place, but there's certain things that you have in place where the first offense is no penalty, the second offense is this, the third offense is that. We've sort of done that with the impounding fee here. You could do the same with the daily boarding fee. You could try it for a year and see what it's costing you. If it's not costing you a lot, you can keep going. If it's costing you too much, you could change your policy. If that makes people comfortable, then you've got tens of thousands of dollars invested into this new service. That is typically our way, is to try and put some empathy into how we manage our policies. You could do that as well. The difficulty is if you have a pet that is picked up, impounded, has 1 or 2 days worth of kenneling over the weekend. When I look to our bylaw enforcement officers, they don't have a way to check what is someone's income? Are they a single parent? What's their tax return look like? Like, that's not gonna happen over the weekend. So, and then you don't wanna get into a situation where if you do intend to charge people and have them pay, that you release their pet or their animal without getting the funds from them, because if you do that, then you likely will never collect. Then it becomes more of a collection issue. So whatever we do, it just needs to be consistent and applicable over the weekend. So for example, if someone needs to pay, we may need to work out, maybe we have a square payment so that they can take a payment over the weekend and release a dog on a Saturday morning instead of having to wait till Monday. Those types of things we can put in place, but we can't put the onus on our enforcement officers to make all those sort of social determinants over the weekend, because the structures just aren't in place for that. So I would not encourage you to think that the Waste Management Center is a good way to go, because it's a terrible way to go for the dogs and for your staff resources and time. But I would encourage you, if you wanted to maybe write into your bylaw or just have a policy that says the first time is free, and then the second and subsequent incidences you get charged. I think that would probably solve 95% of the issues as the wardens described. Thanks.
Well, if I still have the floor, I do respect what the CAO says, and she's, her opinion is that Georgeville Waste Management Center is not the way to go. But with due respect, I'd like to have something, okay, here's on paper, here's the costings of this and comparative costings. I'm not saying we do this, rush out, do this in 2 months, but also we can see the future down the road. I think, to me, I'd like to have that on paper with, okay, here's the facts, and I would like a non-biased report that says, here are the options of that. And for me, and that's only my own opinion, I would like to see that on paper so we could make a decision, further out down the road. That's my own opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, whether we should have a kennel or not, that's a separate issue to this motion, I think. But as far as the fees are concerned, I agree with the warden, the entire municipality is paying for the cost of this service. But if somebody has their dog escape and it's mostly an accident, that individual is creating an expense to the municipality, and no different than any other expense that somebody would cause to the municipality or anybody else. I think they should cover that expense, whatever it is. So I kind of, I understand what the CAO was getting at. You have to match income with expense, and if that individual causes that expense, I think they should be responsible for it. I do have empathy for the situation that the warden described there. If it was a single mother and low income, couldn't afford to pay it and that sort of thing, there's probably other ways to get the funds to pay it or make a payment. But I'll support whatever goes through here, because but I think the $85 fee is fine. I think the bylaw is fine. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next to speak is Warden Rolston.
Thank you. And I understand that with the SPCA abandoning us, we're under a bit of time constraint to get this set up and to work through this. So anyway, I think there's time to fine tune it down the road and maybe get some other reports on that. At this time, I'll see how it goes or not, but if no one's dog ever escaped or ever caused any problems, we wouldn't need a dog bylaw, and we wouldn't need an enforcement officer, and we wouldn't need to accrue any expense. So those are just my comments there. I'm going to move that this bylaw incorporate a policy where a first offense of a dog being impounded, that the fees are waived for the first offense.
Impound and the boarding fee?
Yes. No, I'm not even gonna say for 2 days, because maybe it's a long weekend or something, and that's out of the control. The person can't find out and get their dog. We aren't here at the office. They can't pay the fees and get their dog back. That's kind of the concern here, that we're causing this money to add up, so.
It would have to be till the next business day, because you could have a month go by.
All right, I'm going to move an amendment that the fees be waived for the first offense for up to 4 days. That looks after long weekends and holidays, whatever.
Okay, so the amendment happens right now.
If someone seconds it, I'm just moving an amendment to add something to the bylaw that allows us to waive the fees for up to 4 days for a first offense.
Through you, Madam Chair, or just to confirm, would that be in the bylaw or would that be in the policy, the fees policy?
Well, wherever it fits best.
Okay.
If someone seconds it. If not, it's lost.
Okay, motion's been moved and seconded. So we're going to the vote.
No discussion on the amendment.
Okay, Counselor Perry.
Thank you. Just for point of clarity, would that just be for missing dogs? Because as it stays now, like, we kennel dogs that bite people, we kennel dogs that create a nuisance, we kennel dogs that attack chickens, we kennel dogs that do all that. Is it for all of those offenses, or just the case where a dog gets loose and is missing? Because if a dog bites somebody and has to be kennelled until a assessment and everything is done, I don't want that person to get a free pass after it's done that. Or if a dog goes into a chicken coop and destroys somebody else's property, right? Not only is the dog gonna be returned for free, but that person is now out property owner.
My intent would be for dogs at large.
Just dogs at large.
Yes,
in the
not dogs
policy.
that were impounded because of a complaint, but dogs that were
Just-
found at large by a member of the public, by staff, by whoever.
Cause I can 100% support that, but I couldn't support any of the other issues of a dog being impounded. So it would just be for dogs at large. Is that an amendment to the
If a seconder's in agreement, that can be incorporated in my amendment.
Okay. I'm good, thank you.
Okay, seeing no one left to speak, we'll vote on the amendment. How many have we got now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and
There's 10 people here.
still someone left to vote. Okay, the motion is passed 8-2 with Deputy Warden Dixon and Counselor Tingley voting nay. So we've got the original motion on the floor. Seeing no one to speak, sorry, Counselor Rhino, go ahead.
No, just after, not to the motion, I'd just like to have a chance
'Kay.
after the next one.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. And the vote has passed unanimously. Oh. Counselor Rhino?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to staff. So this takes place, the new kenneling April 1?
Through you, Madam Chair, correct.
Okay. So I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to move that after a year of this new kenneling issue, I move that a report be brought back on the number of usage and so on and so forth. Plus, in addition to, I will say, a report on the options of going our own way with regard to kenneling and so on and so forth. After a year, then we'll have a better picture how this is working, and we will have an option that we can't object to. Thank you.
Motion's been made and seconded. Seeing no one to speak, we'll go to the vote. And the motion has passed unanimously. Seeing no other items on the agenda, the Corporate and Residential Services Committee is adjourned. We are breaking for lunch and we'll come back to Infrastructure and Operations at 1:30.
Planning advisory.
Planning Advisory at 1:30.